Target acquired. Commander Krithzar stood before the command dais of the Kakari Dominion's flagship, Void Claw, his claws tapping in anticipation. The projection of Earth hovered mid-air, spinning slowly, green, blue, and white swirls beneath a digital overlay of resource zones and major population centers. A death world. Krithzar scoffed. This mudball barely qualifies as Class 3. Primitive bipeds, fractured governance, no planetary unity. They still bane dead vegetation for energy. Chuckles rippled through the assembled officers. The Karkari had conquered 4 systems in the last cycle. Earth was to be their next prize, rich in metals, water, and a biosphere ripe for exploitation. A perfect staging ground for expansion. Strategist Yolnath stepped forward. Initial probes encountered some anomalies. High atmospheric volatility, unexpected electromagnetic spikes, and high casualty rates among scouts. Krithzar's slit-pupiled eyes narrowed. Casualty rates. Not from combat, Yolnath clarified quickly. From the environment. Several units were lost to what appears to be weather. One scout's footage ended mid-transmission during a storm, crystalline projectiles striking at over 100 meters per second. Hail, an analyst chimed in. Common in their climate cycles. Krithzar waved a dismissive hand. So the egg gets angry. So what? These apes have no centralized defense grid, no orbital presence, and no interstellar allies. We'll land, suppress resistance, and begin extraction. He turned toward the assembled strike captains. Prepare the drop waves. Target the urban centers first. Show them the might of the Dominion. In the hangar bay below, thousands of drop pods were already loading. Karkari warriors in pressurized exo-armor filed into formation, confident and eager. Their claws had torn through the jungles of Vorgus and cracked the crystalline bunkers of Yorn. Earth would be no different. High above the planet, the invasion force shifted into orbital alignment. On the other side of the galaxy, Earth's early warning systems lit up, too late. Radar stations picked up strange readings. A few amateur astronomers captured flickers of massive objects eclipsing stars. Then, the sky above major cities filled with screaming trails of fire. The first wave was coming. Back aboard the Void Claw, Krithzar watched the invasion unfold. Drop pods entering atmosphere, Yolnath reported. Any resistance? None detected. Local comms are panicked. Some attempt at mobilization. Primitive aircraft and kinetic weapons. Krithzar leaned back, smug. Then this world falls today. The bridge lights dimmed as the fleet's energy grid diverted power to mass drivers. Troop deployment was already underway, and by all metrics, Earth was unprepared. Easy prey. And yet, far below, amid the planet's chaotic weather systems, shifting terrain, and unpredictably violent biosphere, something ancient stirred. Not just weapons or armies, but something the Karkari had never truly faced. Something that had evolved not in harmony with its world, but in constant defiance of it. Something human. The Deathworld reveals itself. Subcommander Vaughn's drop pod didn't land. It crashed. The fiery descent over North America had gone smoothly until a sudden updraft hurled the pod sideways. Wind shear. Unaccounted for. The pod slammed into the jagged spine of the Rocky Mountains, skidding across snow and stone before embedding itself halfway down a ravine. Systems inside sparked and died. The hatch hissed open, but only halfway. Vaughn shoved it aside, dragging his battered frame out into blinding cold. Snow bit into his chitin armor. Thin air made his secondary lungs wheeze. He stumbled forward, weapon drawn, visor fogging instantly. The terrain was jagged and uneven, covered in snow that swallowed his limbs to the knee. Nothing here matched the smooth plains and soft targets promised in briefing. A gust of wind slammed into him, nearly lifting him off his feet. The HUD blinked red. Hypothermia risk. Atmospheric oxygen spikes. Unstable ground. Glorious, Vaughn muttered, switching to thermal scan. The surrounding area was filled with small, warm bodies, fast-moving mammals, most too quick to target. One was watching him. Large. Upright. A local. He raised his rifle. The figure vanished. Lena Torres crouched behind a boulder, breath steady despite the freezing air. Her rifle stayed lowered. She wasn't here to shoot. Not yet. She had watched the fireball scream from the sky and slammed her truck into gear, chasing it deep into the mountain roads. The military was too slow. This one was hers. She'd done 3 tours in Iraq, 2 in South Sudan. After retiring, she moved out here for peace and quiet. That plan had ended the second the alien came down like a meteor. Through her scope, she studied it. Tall, insectoid, armored, but limping. Not used to the cold or the altitude. That gave her time. She moved silently, circling to higher ground. Vaughn pressed on, scanning for communication signals. Nothing. Jammed or out of range. His squad's pods had scattered across hundreds of kilometers. The Dominion would be expecting progress reports by now. He stumbled, catching himself against a frozen branch, and screamed as it snapped back, slicing his forearm. Red-black blood sizzled against the cold. He cursed it again, applying a field patch. The local flora was aggressive. Sharp, thorned. Half the trees seemed intent on tripping or stabbing him. He trained for toxic atmospheres, high-radiation worlds, even low-gravity void zones. But Earth was malicious, alive in ways that felt personal. Lena watched him sit heavily on a rock, slumped and shaking. She almost pitied him. Almost. This wasn't a wrecking scout anymore. This was a wounded animal, dropped into a forest full of bigger predators. She glanced at the bear tracks near her boots and smirked. That alien had no idea how deep it had landed in hell. By nightfall, the temperature dropped again. Vaughn's armor began to fail from the cold and moisture. He huddled beneath a ledge, every sound amplified by the alien wilderness. Behind him, unseen in the darkness, human eyes still watched. The invasion had begun. But the aliens weren't conquering a planet. They were surviving it. The monsters of Earth. The briefing rooms aboard the Voidclaw had grown quiet. Commander Krithzar's mandibles twitched in irritation as another distress signal crackled over the comms. A flaming wreck of a skirmisher drone had plummeted into an ocean trench. Its final image showed a massive, airborne predator tearing off its wing. A flying reptile, Yolnath reported grimly. Local species. It attacked without provocation. Krithzar slammed a fist onto the table. We have aerial superiority. Not against hurricanes, Yolnath replied, voice low. 5 of our dropships were torn apart mid-flight. That storm front over their eastern continent. It's moving faster than anything we've modeled. Even the clouds here are hostile. Krithzar turned to another monitor. Footage from the surface showed alien soldiers bogged down in terrain that defied logic. Mud that swallowed boots whole, trees that collapsed in wind bursts, insects that crawled inside exo-armor and shorted circuitry. And always, humans. Small, fast, and disturbingly resilient. They emerged from forests, caves, and ruined buildings, striking with brutal, improvised tactics. Fire, ambushes, even acid-based weapons. No 2 engagements looked the same. There was no pattern. No central command, just coordinated chaos. In the Colorado wilderness, Lena Torres adjusted the makeshift sling around her rifle and moved in silence across the rocky ledge. Below her, Vaughn lay unconscious, snared in a bear trap she hadn't set. Nature was doing her job for her. She approached cautiously, weapon raised. To her surprise, the alien groaned and tried to speak. I surrender, Vaughn rasped. His translator garbled the word, but Lena understood the posture. She lowered the rifle slightly. He wasn't a threat anymore. Why the hell are you here? She asked, crouching beside him. Why Earth? Vaughn coughed, chittering in pain. Resources. Conquest. Weak. Species. She gave a bitter laugh. Still think that. Vaughn's eyes flicked to the infected wound on his leg, the melted armor on his side, and the storm clouds gathering again. No. At dusk, Lena bound his wounds with real gauze, disinfected with vodka. It hurt more than the wound. You apes live like this? Vaughn asked, shivering. Lena looked out into the wilderness. You think this is bad? Wait until winter hits. Vaughn stared at her. You live on a planet that wants to kill you. She smiled thinly. We don't just live on it. We got good at surviving it. Across the globe, similar stories unfolded. Alien troops collapsed in deserts from heat stroke. Jungle patrols disappeared into thick vines, never to return. Ocean landings were attacked by apex predators larger than their landing craft. And the humans were watching, learning, adapting faster than any species the Kakari had faced. Krithza finally saw the truth on the faces of his dying soldiers. Earth was not an easy conquest. It was a proving ground, and they had failed the test. Retreat and warning. The skies over Earth were no longer filled with fire. They were filled with fleeing ships. Commander Krithza stood on the bridge of the Void Claw, staring at the evacuation report scrolling across his display. Red, everywhere. Whole divisions wiped out, not in combat, but by the planet itself. Others had simply vanished, lost in vast forests, mountains, or storm-blasted plains. Communications were failing. Morale had shattered. Of the 12,000 troops deployed in the first wave, less than 3,000 remained alive. Most were requesting immediate extraction. Some were begging. "We cannot hold this world," Yolnath admitted. "The humans aren't even unified, yet they are bleeding us dry. Every forest is a trap. Every city fights like a fortress. And the planet itself." Krithza's jaw clenched. This was not war. It was attrition by nightmare. "Order a full retreat," he growled. "We came seeking conquest. We found hell." In the Rockies, Lena stood on a ridge, watching the distant sky shimmer as alien craft broke orbit. Their departure trails lit up the clouds like strange comets. Beside her, Vaughn sat quietly, bundled in salvaged gear. No weapon, no fight left. "You're lucky," she said, handing him a canteen. "Your people are leaving. Most of ours never got the chance to run." Vaughn looked upward. "They won't come back." "Good." She shouldered her rifle. "Because next time, we won't be caught by surprise." He turned to her slowly. "You could have killed me. Why didn't you?" Lena looked at the forest below. "Because it was more important that you go back and tell them what Earth really is." He nodded grimly. "I will." Aboard the Void Claw, Vaughn stood in the War Council chamber, patched up and pale. He faced Krithza and the High Command. "I was on the surface for 4 Earth rotations," he said. "This planet is not what we believed. Every living thing competes, evolves, survives by destruction. It births storms that swallow cities, creatures that hunt like machines. And yet, the humans thrive." Murmurs broke out. He raised his voice. "They fight as individuals, but with shared fury. They adapt faster than we can record. They build weapons from scrap, strategies from instinct, and they never stop pushing back. I watched one of them patch a wound with gunpowder and fire. Fire!" The room fell silent. "I do not fear the humans because they are strong. I fear them because their world forged them to overcome extinction. Every day. And now they've turned that will against us." Krithza dismissed the meeting in silence. Later that cycle, a Dominion-wide message was transmitted across the stars. "Do not approach Sol 3. Classified as Deathworld rank, extreme. Dominion forces suffered total strategic failure. The native species is to be avoided at all costs." On Earth, Lena stood beneath a clear night sky. No ships, no fire, just stars. "We survived," someone whispered beside her. "No," Lena replied, eyes hard. "We warned them." And across the galaxy, the legend of Earth began to spread, not as a target, but as a terror. A world not to be conquered, but to be feared.